Assalamu alaikum, good evening, shalom, peace be with you, Goeienaand. I would first like to just piggyback on the story told by the rabbi and just see how we've put an Arabic spin to that. So the king went out and he saw this old man planting a date palm tree, and he found this very amusing. He had his treasure with him, and he asked the old man, why are you planting this? You are 90 years old and this will take several years to grow. And the old man, and you will not see the fruit of your labor in your lifetime, the king said. The old man then looked at the king and said, "O king, people before me planted and we are benefiting from their trees. And so we need to give back and pay it forward." And the king said, "Zi." The rule was, if the king says Zi, he has to give a little bag of gold to this old man. The old man took the gold and looked at it and he said, "You just told me a minute ago I won't see the fruit of my labor in my lifetime. I've seen that within 2 minutes." So the king said Zi again. And then the old man said, "Well, some people see the fruit of their labor once in their lifetime. I have seen it twice within a few minutes. Another bag of gold." So the king said, "Let's move on. You will just bankrupt us." I think the good idea for good communities is to steal ideas, to steal jokes, and to steal the wisdom that is out in every community out there. The Prophet, peace be with him, said, "Wisdom is the last property of the believer. Let them appropriate it wherever they find that, even if you find it in China." And so I have a good Jewish friend, and he sometimes sends me verses from the Talmud. And one of the most beautiful verses is that, or sayings, and I don't know, I didn't memorize the entire piece, but there are those people who are wicked, those people who say what is mine and what is yours is also mine. It reminds us of those who say our oil is under your soil. And then there are those people who are average who say what is mine and yours is yours. Just ignore them. But there are those people who are scrupulously pious, those people who will say that what is mine, what is yours, and what is mine is also yours. Whenever we have a marriage, we tell men that what is yours is yours, what is your wife's is your wife's, and what is yours is also hers. And so we hope that all Muslim men out there are scrupulously pious and following the tradition of the Talmud. Coming back, I think also one of the other important aspects of altruism is also showing great leadership, heroic and servant-minded leadership or service-minded leadership. The Prophet, peace be with him, said that the leaders of the people are those who serve them the most. So the more we are of service to people, the greater leaders we are. There's one of our Jesuit priests who are coming on this coming Wednesday, Father Greg Boyle. He's been working in Los Angeles among gangs, and I never knew that Los Angeles has 1,100 gangs, or even more than 1,100, with 83,000 members. He created what we call homeboy industries, and he felt that the best way to fight bullets is to give dignity, to give jobs to these gang members. And he turned around an entire community. Another form of altruism would be to make a difference in society, to turn around a society that was gang infested, and to make them exemplars. That is something great. That is what we saw in the life of Prophet Muhammad, peace be with him. He went to Medina and he found a community that was on the abyss of moral disintegration, and he pulled them back. وَكُنْتُمْ عَلَى شَفَا حُفْرَةٍ مِنَ النَّارِ فَأَنْقَذَكُمْ مِنْهَا. So the Quran says you were on the verge of an abyss of fire, and we pulled you back from that. how often are we making a difference? I think altruism at the highest level is to make a difference, whether it's one family at a time, whether it's one school at a time, one parish at a time, one synagogue, mosque or community at a time. When I went to Turkey, in fact, I came to know about the Gulen movement in Australia. And I was very impressed with the principle they have of hizmat or khidmat. Now, khidmat is a very Islamic term. It means to be of service. In fact, if you look at many of the major movements within the Islamic organizations, whether it's Tabligh, whether it's a Gulen movement, every other Sufi movement, there's always some form of hizmat or khidmat, which means being of service, selfless service. This is the same type of service that the Dalai Lama praises Islam for. The Dalai Lama speaks of Islam's pure ethic of pure altruism. La nuridu minkum jaza'a wa la shukura. We don't expect reward, we don't expect any thanks for whatever we are doing. Doing things in a selfless way, in a way that we couldn't care who gets the credit. I think that is also one of the great types of altruism. So it was great to hear that the Gulen movement, whenever there's a major disaster, a tsunami, they have people there at the disaster relief people who go to the site and try to be there first to assist those people. That is one form of altruism. At a very micro level, the Prophet also spoke about a type of charity, sadaqah, that even smiling in the face of your brother or your sister is a charity. Sometimes we've forgotten to smile. Some people are so serious. And just bringing warmth and as a type of acknowledgement, that is also a way to win over people. I come from South Africa and we have the Ubuntu tradition in South Africa. But the African people have a concept, what they call sayabona. Sayabona, when someone looks at you, walks past in the hallway and doesn't acknowledge you, doesn't have eye contact with you, he's insulted you because he did not see your humanity, he did not see your worth. Sometimes we are selective about human dignity. We are selective about sympathy. We are selective about civil rights. Well, if it's a Muslim who's in pain, well then we shed Muslim tears. Do we do that for a Jewish person, for a Hindu person, for an atheist? There are many stories about Abraham, but one story is very striking. And that's the story of Abraham. Abraham had this tradition of always having a guest at his table. And one day he had a guest and he wanted to say a prayer before he broke bread, before he participated in the meal. And this person withdrew and he said, well, I'm an atheist, I don't believe in God. Abraham said, get out of my tent. I am inviting you in, I'm a man of God, and you say you don't believe in God. God reproached Abraham. And God said, oh, Abraham, I've been feeding this man for so many years. You're being asked to do it once and you can't do a proper job of that. Extending our sympathies not only to our community, I think that is also extremely important. Islam has democratized altruism, that it should be so effortless. Everyone must give zakah. Everyone must give sadaqah. It is within the capacity of each and every one of us to be selfless and to sacrifice ourselves. The sacrifice of Abraham is called al-adha, which means the ultimate priority. The more we contribute, the more we are involved in civic organizations or institutions, any civic involvement, any contribution, people can never argue against that. And so our way of reaching out and being altruistic is to make sure that we embrace this great tradition of volunteerism, but do it in such a way that we couldn't care who gets the credit for that. La nuridu minkum jaza'a wa la shukura. So we should all love, learn, leave a legacy, and that is one way for us to be find it from within. One of the crises we have, especially in the Sunni world, is a crisis of followership. We have too many leaders. Everyone becomes a cyber mufti. Everyone can give a fatwa and go around. Too few people want to follow. Sometimes we need people with great ideas to say, there's a great idea, let's run. How many of you are going to follow us on that? You can take turns later and be a leader, but there should be time that we should be followers also. So we have the crisis of followership within our Muslim communities. Everyone is pulling that way, and we do not get projects off the ground because egos must be massaged and so many other things must happen. We spoke around the table and we said we're at least better than Noah. Noah had only 8 guys around him, and sometimes we have a handful of troublemakers in every mosque, every synagogue, and every church, and we spend 95% of our energy on them. I have 1 or 2 more thoughts. I want to just share 1 or 2 stories around the world. I think what Muhammad Yusuf did with his micro-lending, and he's sometimes seen as the world champion or the champion of world poverty, is great. But the ideal would be to take that idea and to have it as benevolent loans. The Islamic concept of benevolent loan is where you give a certain amount of money to people, whether it's 5,000 and 0% interest, because you want those people to become economically strong. And so that is one of the great contributions that Islam has done to the community. There's a gentleman on the outskirts of Jakarta. His name is Abdullah Azami. Abdullah Azami created a community, and in this community he took women of the street, women of the night. He took felons, ex-prisoners, and orphans, and gave them the best education in the world, so that they can make something out of their lives. One of my friends visited the community out there in Jakarta, and they found on the edge of this community is a beautiful, like a Marriott hotel, and every little room is a grand suite. And he asked them, who are these for? Are these for the CEOs of the group or the leaders of the group? No, these are for the orphans. Because Prophet Muhammad was an orphan, and the more we care for orphans and treat them like celebrities, we are then following the tradition of Islam. There's only 6 verses in the Quran on fasting, 23 verses just on orphans. And by not treating the orphans well, أَفَرَأَيْتَ الَّذِي يُكَذِّبُ بِالدِّينِ فَذَلِكَ الَّذِي يَدُعُّ الْيَتِيمِ. Those people who rebuff the orphans, who turn away the orphans, they have denied their religion. That is how strong the Quran also says. I'm proud of our community. Throughout the country, our community has, especially our physicians, we have Doctors Without Borders. We have physicians setting up free clinics throughout the country. We have the Huda Clinic in Detroit, and more of them are also being founded. 1 or 2 last stories, and then we're going to end. And I think of the story of Ibu Patel. You know Ibu Patel, the great activist among the youth. He had identity crises. And the first one, he said, he tells a story. He says, I was afraid to be brown. And so I pretended to be white and play white games and eat white food. And I didn't want to identify with curry, because he's from India, and I didn't want to identify with those ethnic foods. Until a Mormon girl came along, and she showed me what it is to be proud of myself, to be proud of who I am. The second time, the second identity crisis he had, he wasn't sure whether he wanted to be Indian or American. So he went to visit India after many years. On the bus, he couldn't speak a word of Urdu, and they threw him on the bus when he had to use the restroom. They threw him off the bus. He said, I miss America, I am American now. So his first crisis he overcame. He was now used to being colored or having ethnic foods and also being American. Then he went to his grandmother's place. That night, as he woke up early in the morning because of his jet lag, he found a total strange woman in the house. He ran to his grandmother and said, Grandmother, do you know there's a woman in this house? And his grandmother said, do you know what? Yes, I know about her. Who is this woman? Oh no, she's a battered woman, and I'm just protecting her. So he said, Grandma, are you crazy? These people come after, they could hurt us, they could hurt you. His grandmother said she went to a room, took out a number of photos, and showed how she took in so many of these battered women, cared for them, gave them a new life, gave them new jobs, and also gave them husbands, and restored their dignity to them. And he said, then he discovered that I'm proud to be Muslim. His grandmother did that without expecting a reward, not even telling anyone. For all these years, our own grandson didn't even know about this. I think that to me would be the great spirit that we should bring to the table, whether it's at the micro level, at the macro level, at the political level, any other level. The last story that comes to mind is the most beautiful story in the Quran, and that's the story of Joseph. Now Joseph was in prison, and the king had a dream, and in the dream the king saw that the 7 fat cows are being devoured by the 7 lean cows. Joseph interpreted that to be 7 years of abundance, or several years of abundance would be followed by several years of recession or lack of resources. He then volunteered his services, told the king, Inni makinun amin, I'm capable, I can have a crisis management committee, I can put that together. So he put a crisis management together. But then he did not keep the wheat only for the Egyptians, or people of Pharaoh, but people from Palestine all over came. And we have the story of him keeping Benjamin and so on. I think as a higher level of altruism, recessions will come and go. For the 220 years that we've been in the USA, there's been 22 recessions. I expect another one in 15 years. Do we have a crisis management in place? And perhaps that would be a higher level of altruism. We are all human beings. We must all see each other as the children of Adam and democratize altruism, democratize that sacrifice of Abraham. The ultimate sacrifice is to contribute and to make this world a better place and become the difference that we want to see.